Hi, I'm Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 92 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. This week, we're going to be exploring some of the gorgeous graphic modes on our OCS, ECS Amigas, concentrating on HAM6 mode in particular. This is, of course, the special 6-bit graphics modes that all Amigas from 1985 onward can handle that allows all 4096 colors on screen at one time. It could do this in 1985 on a consumer level computer when most computers were either monochrome or black and white only like the Mac, or could maybe pull 16 colors out of 128 or 16 colors out of 512 if you were lucky, but most of them couldn't handle anything close to 4096 colors on screen at one time unless you went with a dedicated high-end workstation that was quite pricey. I won't get too deep into the technical aspects of HAM6. I'll leave that to our friend Vicky, aka Pixel Vixen, who did a video right here that really went in depth on the inner workings of HAM6 mode. I really recommend you watch it. It's got some great information in it. But in a nutshell, HAM6 mode takes a base 16 colors of your own choosing or of the program's choosing, and it can modify it. It'll hold one of those colors and then modify either one or two bits of the colors in order to achieve another color on screen simultaneously. Now, what this means is while it holds the color and then modifies it, it can leave some fringing or little dots on the screen where you wouldn't really want them. Now, in the early days, it was really obvious, and it could make some fairly ugly images with ham fringing on the sides. But from about 1989 onwards, they got the algorithms down pat, and most programs that handled HAM6 graphics virtually eliminated the worst of the fringing and made what fringing remained more of like a nice dithering effect that really made the image quality kind of nice. We'll also spend a little time looking at some of the other OCS ECS modes like EHB or extra half bright mode, which allows 32 colors on screen, normal colors, and then 32 half intensity colors on screen for a total of 64, and also the very useful 640 by 480 more with interlace high res modes and up to 16 colors. Now you may be wondering why I would be bothering with OCS images on my Amiga 500 here, which is what we're going to be working on today. This is my original Amiga 500 from 1988 that's in a Checkmate case and has a Vampire V2 in it that can give us gorgeous high-resolution 24-bit graphics without any problem at all. This thing feels as fast as my i7 machine over here when it comes to working with graphics. Well, number one, because I can. Number two, the Vampire adds a level of performance in ImageFX, which we're going to be using, which is really helpful. And OCS and ECS displays have a certain charm to them, a certain graphical and recognizable charm to them that can really be useful when you're creating something artistic on the Amiga. Think about what Andy Warhol did with his artwork. He didn't take a soup can and just make a photographic quality image of it and call it art. He made it surreal. He added his own flair to it in order to make it surreal and make it into something different. OCS is just another tool in your toolbox for your artwork that can give you some really clever effects. Take our friend Jojo076. You've all seen his artwork. He's had some great stuff in the Amiga Art Contest. He generally works in 16 color mode on his Amiga artwork. Not because he has to, but because it's a personal challenge to them. Now, from what I understand, he works on a virtual Amiga, so if he wanted to emulate an Amiga 1200 with 256 colors or 256,000 colors, he could do it all day long. It wouldn't bother him a bit. But he chooses to challenge himself by drawing a lot of his artwork in 16 colors, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it has a character all its own. This is the same with me and my Amigas. I have AGA Amigas, I love them, and I work all the time in the high resolution graphics modes available to them for some projects. But for other projects, I like the charm and the appearance of good old OCS HAM6 graphics. Now I'll be doing all of the image editing today in ImageFX 4.5 from our good friends at AEON and Amiga Kit. Now I did a full review on the product last year. You'll find the link right up there for it. Great software. Back in the day, this cost hundreds of dollars, like $2.99, $3.99, $4.99. But you would be silly not to add this still in production software to your personal Amiga collection. Go on to Amiga Kit, you can order the CD boxed version, $35, and it's yours. You want just the download only version? Pop over to AEON's website. It's like 30 bucks. You'd be silly not to add this to your collection. It's fantastic software. You'd be hard pressed to find better image editing software for the Amiga in this day and age. This has Photoshop-like capabilities. I would say that back in the early 90s when this was in its heyday, it was probably neck and neck with what Photoshop could honestly do. Now, one of the advantages to using this on my vampirized Amiga is I can use the ImageFX screen in full 24 or 32-bit resolutions, 1280 by 720, and get an absolutely photo quality preview right up on my screen. Internally, it handles everything 24 bits, and then I can use the software to generate any Amiga graphics mode I want to for output. Now, of course, you can do it on a traditional Amiga. I've run this on my Amiga 1000 with a 68020 and 8 megs of RAM and a little CF card on my classic 520 accelerator. Works fine, but it's going to just work in traditional Amiga modes then. So you could have like a 640 by 480 interface screen, and it's going to take all of the JPEG images or what other images you use, and it's going to represent them in the preview in 16 colors. Internally, all 24-bit, no matter what Amiga you use it on, but it's going to preview them in a lower resolution. Now I'm going to be using the RGB to HDMI interface that I went over a few weeks ago and reviewed a few weeks ago. That's what's going to be outputting the standard RGB graphics to my video capture device. You can get more details by looking at my review right up here in the corner, or just pop on over to retrorewind.ca and take a look at the options that our good friend up there has on RGB to HDMI devices. But they work beautifully and they capture on my capture devices just fine. Now, I'll be using a switch box to switch between RTG graphics and Amiga graphics, but I'll be editing out the actual switching in post-production so you don't have to see the transition of the screens. Now, if I were doing this in a real production environment, I would just have one monitor dedicated to RTG graphics, one monitor dedicated to RGB graphics, and you're fine. There's no monitor switching at all. You just pop it over and there's your screen. But in this case, I'm using a switch box. Let's go ahead and take a look at the software and have some fun. Now we'll start out here with this beautiful 32-bit screen. This is 1280 by 720 retargetable graphics on my Vampire screen, and the background image is Half-Bright Fish done by our good friend Kevin Saunders. Absolutely awesome. Let's go ahead and launch ImageFX. Now ImageFX is also going to load up in 1280 by 720 in 32-bit color mode. Remember, if you're using an original Amiga with no retargetable graphics, you'd open this up at like 640 by 480 in 16 color mode. Let's open up our first image here. All of these images are from a trip my wife and I made to one of Tucson's Rose Gardens in the past week. We had a lot of fun there. Now these are all JPEG images taken right on my cell phone. You can see they're 4032 by 3024 with this particular image, about 13 megapixels. The Amiga can handle JPEG images this size just fine as long as you have the memory. Now I'd recommend absolute bare minimum, scraping the bottom of the barrel, 16 megabytes of 32-bit RAM if you're going to do anything with photo editing. 64 megabytes is fine, 128 megabytes is better. Believe it or not, that's plenty to do almost all the editing you'd ever want to do. But we want to take these images and we want to put them in a more Amiga-like resolution. So what we're going to do is in ImageFX, we're going to make sure our toolbox is open here. We're going to click Size. We're going to click Scale. And you see it tells you what size the image is right now. You can go to Size Preset here. Make sure Ignore Aspect Ratio is set because the aspect ratio of digital camera pictures is different than the Amiga. And you can choose standard Amiga modes for converting it to. In this case, we're going to do, let's do high-res lace overscan, 736 by 480. It's very intentional why I'm going to this mode first. And what it's going to do now is resize the image. Now, you'll notice it shrinks it down here because it's now a 736 by 480 image. So we're going to click the little plus here in the corner, just enlarge that back up, and you can see it's still a 24-bit color image. And you can see even at 736 by 480, absolutely knockout gorgeous color quality here. Now, let's adjust things a little bit. We're going to go into Balance on the toolbar. What this allows you to do is change things like the brightness and the contrast and the color values. You see, we can choose the color space of RGB for monitors, HSV, which is hue saturation values, or CMYK if you're going to be sending this to printing. You've got a preview screen here that you can move around and resize so you can get an idea of what your modifications are going to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to bump up the contrast a little bit here. We're going to go to 15 here, and we're going to do a preview and see how that pulls a little bit more color out of the image here. Here's the original. Here's the second one. It's pulling out a little more color. Let's see if we can get even a little more color. It's about the same. And let's see if we take the gamma down a few points to get rid of some of the harshness and brightness. Yeah, looks good. We're going to click OK, and now it's going to modify the image. Now, if we don't like our color modifications, and I do, I think it looks a little richer and brighter and we get a little more detail, you can always click Undo here and it will undo the last several changes that you've made. Now, just for fun, we want to look at this in high-res 16 color mode. We want to see what the Amiga can do in those modes before we start messing with ham. We click our render option here. And from here, you can choose different kinds of rendering modes. Amiga's the standard Amiga. Here we also have CyberGrafx, DCTV. It will just absolutely talk right with your DCTV box and convert them into DCTV images. Same with HAM6 and OpalVision. This is a good one. Toaster. If you've got a video toaster, you can just take any of these images and instantly create toaster frame stores and have it display right in the toaster. It's awesome. But we're going to stick with Amiga. We're going to turn off all dithering for now because we want to look at what it's like undithered. 16 color, which is the maximum that OCS Amigas can handle in high res. We're going to hit render. Now, you see, it's an interesting image for sure. It's absolutely interesting. It's taking all the millions of colors that were in the original image and it's having to convert them down to 16 colors out of a palette of 4096. It's certainly a cool effect. You know, like maybe something you'd find in front of a greeting card. So you can imagine being able to just trim this out here, take it into Deluxe Paint or whatever, trim that out, and you could use this flower as an image in one of your programs and it would look really cool. But we're going to see what else we can do with it. Now we're going to do the same thing. Now note something important here on the render screen. This button that says close, that image is still on the Amiga on another screen. So if we make changes and we hit render again, it's probably just going to show us the last image that was in its rendering screen. So you want to close this down every time. It just makes it so you don't have to click buttons twice to view images. Now we're going to go into dithering. We're going to set up some Floyd Steinberg dithering. I hope Floyd Steinberg made some good money off of his dithering techniques because everybody uses it. Now we're going to render again with some dithering and see what the difference is. I would have to say that looks substantially better. Now, I would probably want to tone the brightness down We're getting some real hot highlights here on the flower, but we could tone that down by taking the gamma down more. But that is actually a very presentable image in high resolution just by adding the dithering. But we're not done yet. We're going to close the image down. We're going to go back to our toolbox. Now we want to resize this for a ham-sized image. We're going to get our toolbox open here. Annoying little toolbox was hiding out of the way. We're going to scale the image. This time we're going to choose low res lace overscan. 384 by 480. Scales it nice and quick there. Still looks absolutely beautiful. Now we go back to our render screen. This time we're going to render it on a ham screen, 320 by 400 ham, and it will take into consideration the overscan because the image is an overscan. But you notice it doesn't give you overscan option on any of these screens. 16 colors because that's the base color of ham images. We're going to leave dithering on just for this example, and we'll render it out. And absolutely a gorgeous, gorgeous image. Now that we've got 4,096 colors to work with, look how it takes the details in the out of focus background. It takes these greens here of the leaves, and they actually look good now. And we're getting 10 times as much detail in the flower itself, even though we're at about half the resolution. But we can do better because this is ham mode. We're going to close down our screen. We're going to turn off dithering because ham mode, because of its integrated fringing, doesn't always work well with dithering. When you start to dither it, it starts to kind of fringe those dithers and they become very large pixels. So look what happens when we turn off dithering and let ham just take care of everything. That is a world of difference, my friends. Look at that. All the dithering that was down in here is all gone. All the dithering on the plants is gone. You can see there is, in some places, some transitions of colors are not as smooth, but overall, that looks better. Now you can adjust the dithering settings, high, medium, low, different kinds of dithering, and you might find one you like better, but I find HAM6 images with no dithering are absolutely beautiful. Oh, there's some fringing. When I move the image over a little bit, you can see that it has some fringing introduced in the edge, but normally that's not there when I move the image where it's supposed to be. It has to do with overscan. Now you can imagine if Commodore had taken that quality of image that we were just looking at here and used that on like CD TV, which would have absolutely supported it both in file size and the quality, and had like an encyclopedia of flowers and plants with that quality of an image, it would have been breathtaking. You have that in a demo in a store, people would buy it up just because they were so impressed with the image quality. But they didn't hire me back then. Now let's open up another picture. We're going to close this down. Here's another nice image here. I'm going to go ahead and do the conversion and the shrinking down off camera because we've already seen how that's done. And then we'll get right back to the image. Now this is a lovely little image here, but let's see what it looks like using one of the Amiga's other mode, Extra Half Bright. That's the 64 color mode that uses 32 main colors and then 32 half bright colors. And let's add a little dithering here. We'll do our good old Floyd Steinberg and we'll do some low dithering on that. See what kind of result we get. So here you can see an Extra Half Bright. It looks absolutely great. I mean, there's no doubt that this is a beautiful picture of an image, but it's not grabbing enough of the colors. It's concentrating so much on all these pinks in the flower that it's not really leaving a great variety of colors left for the background. So this may not be the optimal type of image for Extra Half Bright. We'll get back to this image in a minute though. Now this here is an image of the actual garden itself. And you can see the sun's going down in the background there, so we have the sky's getting a little bit darker, but we can see a lot of the roses, and there's a dude there. Now let's take a look at this in Extra Half Bright mode with no dithering. Okay, you can see it's picking up detail in the plants here really, really nicely. It's getting the picture of the guy there nicely, the trees. It has a lot of banding up here in the sky though, where the sun is setting. So I'm thinking some dithering is going to take care of that, and this would be a good candidate for an extra half-bright image. We're going to go back, we'll close that down. We're going to go Floyd Steinberg. Let's do a high level of dithering and see what it would look like with a little bit of dithering. And that's more like it. You take a look, you can see the dithering in the sky, but it's really not bad, all things considered. This would be a great background, like for an adventure game. If you're making an adventure game and you want to keep the file size under control, you could do 320 by 200 extra half-bright mode for the extra colors and do some absolutely recognizable, if not full photographic quality images right on your Amiga. With a little dithering, they look pretty darn good. But let's go back to our little flower here. We looked at our flower in extra half-bright mode and we weren't very impressed. Let's see what she looks like in ham mode, just for laughs. We're gonna go back, choose our ham mode, remove dithering, render that out, and that is a gorgeous image, my friends. Look how it picks up the very, very subtle pink gradations down here in the petals. I mean, this flower really looked about like this. It just, the level of detail, the curves in the flower, how the ham fringing actually kind of anti-aliases that, makes it look good. But we don't always want a photorealistic image. Sometimes we want something a little different. So what we're going to do is have a little fun with this image and make it look like an oil painting. We're going to go into our toolbox here. We're going to choose Effect, and one of our options is Oil Paint. Now, we can go crazy with the oil paint image here, but we don't want to do that. You can change your brush size and go wacko and make it so it looks like a big smeary mess. But I like a brush size of about 2, sometimes 3. Preview. And do OK. It's going to process the image. You can see it's in processing right there. See how when we do the paintbrush effect, it blurs the background and it changes the image to make it look like it was done with a paintbrush instead of a photographic quality picture. It gives the image an entirely new look, an entirely new feel. And something like this, I would love to print that out and just put that up on my wall, and it looks almost like somebody just painted a picture. All of it in HAM6 mode. This last image here I thought was so beautiful. This was taken in kind of the fading sunset. The sun was just getting ready to go down, so it's just a beautiful, beautiful glow added to these pictures to make it so beautiful. That and the professionalism of a very modest photographer. Let's take a look at what it looks like in ham mode. Look at that. Can you imagine seeing that picture on a computer monitor back in 1985 and not just going, OMG, that is absolutely incredible. Look at the amount of color that picks up. Look at the details. Look at the veins in the flower there. You can actually see the little veins going up in there. And this is a 382 by 480 HAM6 image. Now it looks good just as it is, but let's have a little fun with it because again, we want to do something a little artistic with this stuff. There are all kinds of filters that we can do, just huge amounts. We can do star filters, lens flares, crystallize, oil paints. There's dozens and dozens of filters, and then once you get into AREX, there's dozens of more things you can do. But some of them, just aren't all that interesting for something you're trying to be a little artistic with. One that I found that's actually kind of cool is this one called Straw. I'd never really used it before. What this is this generates like little tiny pieces of straw, and it superimposes that on top of your image and grabs the colors from it. You're going to see what I mean here in a second. We're going to use some nice small straws. We'll go 5, spacing of 3, although you can adjust this to be as crazy as you want to. And then let's take a look at that. Nope, we want a stronger effect. We're going to do 10. There we go. Okay, now you can see on the preview image a little bit of what it's doing, but look at this when we generate it in full ham mode. I just think that that's a mighty clever effect. See the little sticks that are coming out of it? Those are the pieces of straw that are ripping through the image and corrupting it, changing it. But I think it gives a really, really cool kind of a thick brush stroke effect. So if you imagine, you can combine this with maybe a light oil painting effect and then a straw effect to make it look like it was painted with like a thick bristly brush, and yet is a recognizable image. I just thought it was kind of fun. As you can see, ImageFX is very powerful and very easy to use. All of the images we looked at today, they'll display fine on an Amiga 1000 with 512K of RAM. Now, better if you have a little more memory, but they'll certainly work. Load up Photon Paint, any of these images would load up just fine. You can also use this to manipulate modern images with ease. These are 13 megapixel images. They load up on my Amiga Vampire just fine. 128 megs of RAM. You can take the images, keep them in full 24-bit, 4000 by 3000 pixels, edit, adjust, do whatever you want to, have whatever fun you want, resave them as full-size JPEG images. Bring them back to your PC. They're still 13 megabit images. The Amiga doesn't care. It's just data to the Amiga. So I keep ImageFX and I keep Art Department Professional on every single one of my Amigas that can run it, because I use these programs all the time. I think you'll see that they're quite useful. And it's amazing that on 35-year-old hardware, we're still able to do this and still be able to get impressive results. Now we're just scratching the surface of ImageFX. If you guys want me to go in deeper with some more tutorials on some of the cool things that you can do with programs like ImageFX, let me know with a thumbs up, or please comment below. Let me know what kind of things you'd like to learn about, and I'll see if I can put a tutorial series together on the kind of things you guys are interested in. Thank you to my patrons who are so helpful and so wonderful and so generous. If you would like your name to be listed along with theirs on this beautiful screen of HAM6 images, all these are genuine HAM6 images, just pop on over to patreon.com/10mark. Little as $2 a month, you can make it on this list. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Amigas are one of my favorite loves. Photography is one of my favorite loves. And photo manipulation, one of my favorite loves. So all these are coming together for me. Thanks for watching. Please follow me on Twitter at 10mark1. But until next time, this is Doug from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out to smell the roses.